Welcome. You're watching LawHelp Australia, where we keep you informed and safe with legal tips and updates. I'm Dinesh Weerakkody. Today in the program, we discuss family violence. We've got clinical psychologist Khai Wong, law graduate Emily Tung, and Mr. Peter Benjamin from Victoria Police. Welcome. Emily, can I ask a question from you? And I'm putting you on the hot seat the hot seat now. When we talk about family violence, what comes to your mind?
The first thing that comes to my mind, and I'm sure it would for many people, is the visual of a man hitting a woman or his child. So there's the physical aspect of the abuse, but it does also stem to emotional pain and suffering and abuse as well. So
it's an interesting point. So you think it goes beyond just physical. All right. Khai, can I ask you, as a clinical psychologist, what do you consider as family violence?
Family violence is any form of abuse, violence or control that a family member used against the other to make the other person feel frightened and unsafe. And often this form of control happens over a small matter, and then it gradually grows worse. And a common one that I hear women talk about is the repeat bullying used by the husband. And this is happening so often that she tries to avoid it by pretending that the conflict is not happening.
That's an interesting situation. I think that's how it gets complex. You tend to ignore, and then it becomes a certain situation. And you also did mention women. What about men? Are they victims of family violence as well?
Yes, we do come across male victims of violence, and because I work with a lot of Asian communities and some other cultural communities as well, often it is because of the complexity and the shame and fear attached to it, and the guilt feelings of thinking that people are not going to believe them because they are telling people about their private family matters. That makes it harder for people to share that experience.
Peter, can I ask you to add to that?
Yes, there are several things, Dinesh, that come to mind. First of all, distinguishing in family violence the criminal abuse, which may be assaults, property damage, it could be stalking, it could be breaching intervention orders, it could be pet abuse. And also the non-criminal abuse, which might be isolation, emotional abuse, which Khai spoke about, spiritual abuse, not allowing somebody to practice their religion. It can be financial abuse, where normally the man, in our opinion, is actually controlling everything with the finances to a point where it's ridiculous.
It's interesting you also mentioned the man. Again, I'd like to... Why are we talking about men always making family violence? Is that the reality? Men always...
Victoria Police in the last year took over 60,000 reports of family violence, and we know, because we distinguish between the perpetrator and the victim, that the vast majority of it's men. Sometimes there is same-sex abuse. Sometimes, women will be categorised as the perpetrator, but when you break it down, it can be teenage girls fighting with their parents. As I said, the same-sex relationships.
So it's the men that's are perpetrators. It's victims are mostly women, it seems.
Look, that's certainly the Victorian example, but it's also supported around Australia and internationally that family violence is about power and control,
right. And
predominantly
men are the perpetrators and women are the victims.
So that can be backed up by a statistic. I think it's 4.4% of men have reported being assaulted physically in their relationship. So there is proof that it's not just women, it is men.
So compared to women, what's their percentage?
It's 31%, I think, have reported being
It's
assaulted.
a huge gap, as we've already identifying now.
4.4 to 31.
And one of the things I'm very aware of is the VIC health statistics. 2004 indicate that domestic violence is a key contributor to ill health problem and disability for
And
people
death.
and death. Yes, I remember, and death for people aged 15 to 44. And I think this is why there's been a lot of funding grants that came from the Victorian Action Plan to encourage services to actually, develop programs to address prevention of
Peter,
violence.
now before we talk about law, we've invited a barrister as well. But can I ask you, even though we live in present day, which is developed, so to speak, is there been an increase in family violence? Have you experienced that? What's the latest?
Well, I think there's been, we need to make a distinction between the increased reporting
Right.
and whether there's been more family violence.
An increase in population as well, probably, that shows this stats goes up.
It must, but I think that the overpowering reason for the 60,000 reports that a decade ago was, I think, 23,000, is the phenomenal action the Victorian government has taken to reform family violence over the last decade. And the three chief commissioners of Nixon, Overland and the current Commissioner Ken Lay have all been very supportive, and I think it's recognised across government and community, played a social leadership role in really highlighting the importance that, I think it's 11% of all crime in Victoria happens in the home.
Right. Interesting. So we are taking a short break, and next we will meet with Mr. Andy Naidu, barrister. Mentioned about criminal and non-criminal abuses. Can you give us the distinction, please?
I'm certainly not sure that Peter was referring to criminal and non-criminal abuses. Peter, correct me if I'm wrong. All abuses are criminal from that aspect.